The late afternoon sun bled through the towering library windows, streaking golden rays across the floor. The air carried the familiar hum of finals week, keyboard clicks, whispered study notes, the occasional rustle of turning pages. It was stress, but it was normal. Safe. Until the intercom crackled to life. A burst of static, then a voice, flat and cold. Lockdown. Lockdown immediately. A deep chill shot through my spine. The room froze for half a second. Then chaos erupted. Chairs screeched against the floor. Pens clattered. Students jolted upright, their whispers twisting into frantic gasps. A few bolted for the door, until Miss Thompson stopped them. Her hands trembled as she twisted the key in the lock. Her lips barely moved, but I caught the words she whispered under her breath. Not again, never again. Her reaction scared me more than the announcement itself. The air thickened. Every breath felt heavier. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, then flickered erratically. Outside, footsteps pounded through the halls. Distant doors slammed shut. Muffled voices barked orders we couldn't make out. I forced myself to move to help cover the windows, and that's when I saw them. A mob of figures flooded the courtyard. Dozens. At least 50. Their movements weren't just panicked, they were desperate. Some pounded on locked classroom doors, others tried kicking them down. But what made my blood turn to ice wasn't their numbers. It was the duffel bags they clutched, knuckles white, as if whatever was inside was more important than their own lives. Then I saw him. A boy from my neighborhood. His face was pale, drenched in sweat. He wasn't running toward an exit. He was searching, looking for someone. Inside, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, flickered again. The library sat in frozen silence, but I could hear our collective ragged breathing. Some students crouched behind bookshelves, others huddled in corners, clinging to each other. No one spoke, except Daniel. "I know them," he whispered. His voice was barely audible, but the fear behind it was clear. They've been picking on me for months, taking my money. Every time they see me. A girl next to him swallowed hard. One of them used to go here. Dropped out last year. I heard he joined a gang. I turned back to the window, heart hammering. The boy from my neighborhood stood frozen in place, still gripping his bag. His breath was ragged, eyes wild. Then, as if sensing something, his gaze lifted. He locked eyes with someone inside the library. Not at me, at someone else. Before I could react, a distant wail pierced the air. Sirens. The mob outside stiffened. Then, pure panic. Someone shouted, "Cops! Run!" They scattered instantly, vanishing into the shadows of the school corridors. But the dropout, the former student, hesitated. He turned toward the library one last time, his face twisted, fear, regret, before he bolted into the night. Miss Thompson let out a breath, but she wasn't relieved. She was terrified. Minutes later, a sharp knock rattled the library door. Miss Thompson flinched before forcing herself to move, unlocking it with shaky fingers. A police officer stepped in, scanning the room, barely looking at us. They hit the electronics store up the street, the one with the fruit logo, stole everything. This group was just a small part of it. A crime. They weren't running towards something. They were running from it. As we neared the exit, Daniel hesitated. Then he straightened, squared his shoulders. His voice shook, but he forced the words out. "I can identify them. If you need me to, I'll go to the station." His words should have brought relief. Instead, a deep, suffocating unease settled over me. Something was wrong. The following night, long after the lockdown ended where I went straight home, I returned to my locker. The moment I swung it open, my breath caught in my throat. A duffel bag, the same kind they had been carrying. My heart pounded against my ribs as I reached for the zipper, my fingers ice cold. The metal groaned as I slid it open, revealing nothing. Nothing except a single folded note, one word. Snitch? A rush of cold swept through me. My stomach lurched. And that's when I realized the last time I saw Daniel was before he went to the station yesterday. He hadn't come to school today. A sick feeling curled in my stomach. Had something happened to him? My phone buzzed in my pocket. Slowly I pulled it out. Unknown number. A message. Decide wisely. My hands trembled. I swallowed hard and turned my head, an eerie sensation creeping up my spine. Then tap, faint tapping on the hallway window. I snapped my gaze toward it, heart slamming into my ribs. The curtains fluttered slightly from the night breeze. But beyond them, just the dark. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. Maybe it was just the wind. Maybe I was just imagining things. Then my phone vibrated again. We're closer than you think. Through the small window at the end of the hall, barely visible beneath the dim streetlight, someone was standing there, watching, waiting.